Hello everyone, my name is Curtis. Today I'm doing a review for DTF St. Louis Season 1, Episode 1. This episode focused on the following storyline. So the first storyline involved Floyd. He's trying to build a connection with his stepson Richard. Unfortunately, Richard is not really receptive to him, but you can tell that Floyd, like really deep down inside, he really wants to build this connection. So therefore, he's going to do everything that he can to make sure that they have a strong bond. The second storyline focused on Floyd and Clark's friendship. So we see their friendship built from the ground up. They do work together. So we do see how they are able to develop a bond, and it seems like they are developing a genuine friendship. And it actually goes into the third storyline, which involves the DTF St. Louis app, which is an app that married people can go on, they can hook up, they can have sex, and then they go back to their significant others. And the reason why these two want to go onto this app is because their marriages are not really going the way that they thought it would. So when it comes to Floyd, he's dealing with a situation where he has a stepson who really doesn't like him. But then also when it comes to his wife, she is an umpire, so she has like all of this heavy gear on. And so every time they are getting ready to have sex, he thinks about the fact that she's this umpire and she's wearing this gear and it's turning him off. When it comes to Clark, he's saying that his wife, she does a lot of charity work. And so their situations pretty much kind of go in separate ways. So he has to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning. She's doing this charity work. She's working all night. So therefore, they can't really build a connection that they once had. And so it's causing him to want to go out and do something with somebody else. Clark looks at it as a guilt-free way to spice up a marriage because you're not building any meaningful connection. So it's not necessarily like having an affair. It's just a quick hookup. So it's not anything that is really too much. It's not something that's going to last for a long time. It's not something that would threaten the marriage. And so he feels like it's something that will be positive and that it's not going to cause any type of issues. When it comes to Floyd, he's like, I'm not really sure. Initially, that is because when it comes to Floyd, he actually gets into it with his stepson Richard while they're playing a board game. When it comes to his wife, she doesn't actually have his back. She's pretty much like, he's a kid, just let it go. Like, why are you worried about it so much? And then after that, he actually goes into the room with her because she ends up going into the room. He follows after her. He sees her legs, so he feels that they can possibly have sex in that moment. But she's like, no, I actually have a couple of night games, and she's getting ready to get her gear on. And so, of course, it turns him off. And then after that, he goes outside. His stepson Richard is outside. He's throwing stuff at the window, throwing stuff at the house, talking about how he lost a game. So he's like, you know what? I'm sick of this shit. And he's like, what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to get on the app. And so he does reach out to Clark, and then they have a conversation, and they basically agree that they are going to go on the app. The next storyline involves the mysterious death of Floyd. So when it comes to Floyd, we actually kind of sped up a little bit. But when it comes to Floyd, we see that he is inside of a locker room near a pool and he is laid out. So unfortunately, somebody did take him out. So we're just trying to figure out what exactly happened to him. I had a good idea of what happened to him as soon as it happened, but I was like, you know what, let me just let it play out. And so we're just pretty much trying to figure out what happened, who did it, and why did it occur. And that was my quick overview of the episode. I thought the episode was really, really good. I will say this started out a little slow at first. I wasn't really sure how they were going to build us everything. But as everything went along, I was like, you know what, this is really, really good. So I do look forward to watching all of the episodes. And I definitely look forward to reviewing all of the episodes. And now that I got the quick overview out of the way, I'm going to start the full detailed review. So the episode starts off in 2018. We see Clark, he is on a recumbent trike. And so when it comes to that recumbent trike, that is something that's going to come up a little bit later. So just keep that in mind. But we do see him riding around. And as he is riding around, we see a big billboard. He's actually on the billboard. And we find out that he actually works for the news station. After this, we see Floyd. We also see his stepson, Richard. They are inside of a group therapy session. So we actually see multiple families there. So I'm going to assume that this is going to be a session for fathers who have a hard time connecting with their sons and mothers who have a hard time connecting with their daughters. They're just going to all come together and try to learn from one another. And so when it comes to the therapist, he does make the mistake multiple times of calling Floyd Richard's father. Richard does correct her every single time, like, he is not my father, he is my stepfather, please don't do that. She's like, you know what, I'm sorry, let's just try to do this exercise. So the exercise involves Richard putting his head on Floyd's chest so that way he can feel his heartbeat and also hear the words that are coming from his heart, right? And so Floyd, he's trying his best to connect with them. He's like, you know what, I know you got some C's. I used to get C's back in the day, but it's okay, it doesn't make you average. And so he's trying to connect and reason with his stepson, but his stepson can't really focus because he feels his stomach, as far as like Floyd's stomach, more than he feels his chest. So it's like, why do I feel your stomach more than I feel your chest? Why are your clothes so tight? And so he's pretty much talking about his weight. Floyd's like, you know what, I did gain some weight, but that's okay because I am going to lose it because I really want to be around for a really long time because I love you and I care about you, so I want to be in your life. And so when it comes to Richard, he's not necessarily receptive because, I mean, he's young, he's rebellious, he misses his father, he doesn't want him in his life. And so he's not really receptive in that moment. At least he pretended that he wasn't, but he probably understood what was going on. He understood that Floyd really loves and cares about him, really loves and cares about his mother. And so he probably feels it deep down inside, but of course, to his face, he's going to act as if he doesn't care. In the next scene, we actually see Floyd and Clark together. So they're actually reporting live from a really bad storm. There's debris and everything flying around. There's actually a stop sign that was cut in half. It's actually flying through the air. Floyd is actually able to grab Clark, pull him back before it actually hit him, stabbed him, and possibly killed him. So he's actually able to save his life. So at that point, they're like, okay, that's enough. You all pretty much get the hint it's a really bad storm, and they actually end up ending the newscast right there. After that, they end up going to the store where they had a conversation, and they got to know each other a little bit more because they were not properly introduced. And so during this scene, this is when Floyd decided to tell Clark that he has Peyronie's disease, which means that his dick curves in a certain angle. I'm not sure why we needed to know that information. I'm not sure why he felt like Clark needed to know that information, but he does tell him that, and Clark was like, okay, cool, thanks for letting me know. Also, thank you for saving me. And he says, you know what, going forward, when it comes to emergency situations, I'm going to make sure that we work together. We then transition over to a montage scene where we do see Clark and Floyd developing their friendship, developing their bond. And then after that, we do see that Floyd, his wife, along with Floyd's stepson, Richard, they do go over to Clark's house because they do want to play cornhole, right? And so when it comes to Richard with his badass, he is throwing the little bags that go into the cornhole at Clark's house as if it's nothing, even though Clark is right there. I was like, this boy is so disrespectful. Like, not only do you do this at home, but you do it at other places. Like, you're doing too much, right? And so Floyd, he is able to be like, you know what, can you just stop doing that? Can you go do something else? And then after that, Clark was like, hey, do you mind helping me with the swing set? After he finishes helping him with the swing set, this is when Clark decides to bring up the DTF St. Louis app. He's like, this is for married people. They can go on there, they can hook up. They don't have to worry about any long-term commitments. So therefore, it's not really cheating or having an affair, according to him. It's just something to do real quick just to get your mind off of things that are going on at home. And so this is when we find out, the turnoffs, like why they're even thinking about going on this app. And then I did mention this a little bit earlier, but when it comes to Floyd, his wife, she decided to become an umpire. She's wearing all of this umpire gear. It's turning him off. It's like when they're having sex, he's thinking about it. And then even in moments where he's like, oh, I'm not thinking about it, it causes him to think about it. And so that's causing a rift between them. And then when it comes to Clark, his wife is doing a lot of charity work. It's lasting a really long time. It's going into the night. He has to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, so he has to go to sleep earlier. So they're not really able to be on each other's path. They're not really able to meet in the middle. They're not able to really be compatible sexually. And so that's why he wants to go on the app. Clark is pretty much all in, but when it comes to Floyd, he's like, I'm not really sure. Clark is like, well, how about we meet at a steakhouse? We can have a conversation. We can explore the app together. And so Floyd's like, you know what? I don't really think that's a good idea. Besides, me and the family, we have board game night coming up. I actually need to go buy the board game. So I'm going to pass for now. And then when it comes to the board game, he actually attempts to put it on 2 different cards. He wants to split the purchase. One of the cards is maxed out, so he can't use it. So he actually had to put everything on 1 card. And then when it comes to the board game night, it's pretty much a disaster. Him and his stepson, they get into it. His wife doesn't really have his back. And then even when they have a conversation after the fact, his wife is just like, you know what, he's a kid. Like, why are you taking this so serious? Like, just relax. Not really being there for him, not really understanding where he's coming from. And so she ends up leaving where they were. They were in the kitchen. She goes into the bedroom. He follows behind her, and then he sees her legs, right? And so he gets turned on. He wants to fuck. And he brings up like, hey, maybe we can do something right now. But she's like, actually, I need to go and put on my umpire gear. And so, of course, that does turn him off. So he does go outside. And when he goes outside, Richard is out there. He's throwing rocks at the windows, at the house, just doing too much, talking about how he lost the board game. And so he's like, you know what, I'm sick of this. So he ends up calling Clark and he's like, you know what, let's meet at the steakhouse. The 2 of them end up meeting at the steakhouse and they're discussing the app. So Floyd is like, well, when I create the app, what will happen? Clark is like, well, when you create the app, somebody's going to come across it. They're going to send you a message. They're going to ask you to meet. You 2 are going to meet. You're going to fuck. And then you're going to go back home. And so it does take Floyd some time, but eventually he does say, you know what? I agree with it. I want to do it. I'm going to use the app. So it seems like everything's going to be good. Everything's going to be fine. He's just going to step out every now and then, when he's not really feeling turned on by his wife, but everything's going to be good. But unfortunately, it's not because we end up going to, there was a pool and there was a locker room area. So we end up zooming into where the locker room was. And we see him, he's on the ground. And unfortunately, he is dead. So somebody did take him out. So we're just trying to figure out what exactly happened between the time that he agreed to be on the app to now and who was involved. We are then introduced to Jody and Donahue. So when it comes to Jody, she works for the special crime unit for the local town. When it comes to Donahue, he actually works for St. Louis County. And so there is like an issue initially when it comes to like overall jurisdiction, like who is going to do this first, who's going to do that first. And so it does look like there's going to be an issue between the two, but it does eventually work itself out. But when it comes to Donahue, he is able to look at the scene before Jody. And so as he is looking at the crime scene, he notices that there is a can, it says Bloody Mary. And then also there's this picture of this naked man, but the man's face is scratched out. So he doesn't even notice that the man's face is scratched out, but both me and Jody did notice that. After Donahue finishes looking at the crime scene, he does go to Jody, and he tells Jody that he believes that Floyd had a heart attack. He says that he believes that Floyd was gay, he was down low, he was in the closet, he snuck over here so that way he can look at gay porn and he could jack off, and during that time he had a heart attack. When it comes to Jody, she's like, I'm not really sure if that's the case. And then she looks at the photo and she's like, did you notice that the guy's face is scratched out that's on that poster? Did you notice that? And so when it comes to Donahue, he did not notice that at first. And so after this, they decide to divide up the tasks. He tells her that he is in control of the investigation. She has to do what he says, and that she just needs to go out and collect some information. And then also there were some keys that were found. So he was like, take these keys, see where they open. And then what I'm going to do, I am going to look through his phone, see what I can find. And so when it comes to Jody, she is a little too ambitious to really be told what to do or to be confined to just doing like a limited amount of things. And so after the fact, she ends up going to all of the local businesses that are nearby, and she asks them to see the surveillance footage. And when she looks at the surveillance footage, she notices that that trike that I mentioned a little bit earlier, it can be seen going to the location to where he was found dead. Jody ends up finding out where the recumbent trike was sold at, so she goes to the shop, she meets with the owner, and she's like, hey, do you remember selling these? He was like, yeah, I actually sold two of them to one person. And she was like, okay, do you remember who the person was? And so he actually points outside. So she goes outside and she looks up and there's a billboard, and of course Clark is on the billboard. She then ends up meeting up with Donahue, where she explains that she went to the local businesses and she was able to get surveillance footage. And so he was upset because he's like, I did not authorize that, but she does continue to talk. She was like, when I was looking at the surveillance footage, I noticed that somebody was running around in this strange recumbent trike. And so I was able to track down where they were purchased. So I did speak with the owner. The owner said that he had two of those trikes and he actually sold it to one person. And it turns out to be Clark from the news station. And so when it comes to Donahue, he was like, okay, well, thank you for this information. I want to go to the station, see if I can convince them to come down to our station so I can question them. And it is very important to note that when it comes to Donahue, he did go to Floyd's wife's house, went to Floyd's house, spoke with his wife, and he was able to get Floyd's laptop. Donahue ends up going to the news station where he has a conversation with Clark, and it's just like, you know what, I would really appreciate it if you could come down to the station so I can ask you a couple of questions. Clark was like, you know what, that's fine as long as I can take my own vehicle, because the vehicle ends up being a trike, which is crazy, right? But when it comes to Donahue and Clark, they end up meeting in the lobby, and Donahue does give him a picture. It's like a screenshot from the surveillance footage that does show the trike. And it's like, we did speak to a bike shop, and the owner did say that they sold you two of these trikes. And so we're just trying to figure out if you were there. He says, no, I wasn't there. And so Donahue was like, okay, all right, cool. He was like, oh, that's it? He's like, yeah, that's fine. That's cool. Like, you're not being detained. You are free to go. It's cool. But he does actually, it's not really him. Somebody else walks over and hands him a paper. And he's like, when it comes to your phone, we are going to keep it. And so the paper is actually a search warrant. We're going to keep your phone. We're going to look through it. And we're going to get it back to you as soon as we can. And so when it comes to Clark, he's like, oh, you're going to keep my phone. And he's looking through the paper. I guess he's trying to find like a loophole, but he can't find one. He's like, oh, okay. And he ends up leaving. And of course, at that moment, he knows that he's fucked. They were able to get into the phone, look at the text messages, and they pulled out a lot of text messages. Like, they had a lot of paperwork. It was like this. They could look like a fucking Harry Potter book. It was a lot going on. But when it comes to the text messages, we ended up finding out that Clark was actually having an affair with Floyd's wife, right? So, of course, that does give motive. And then when it comes to the toxicology report, we ended up finding out that Floyd, he did not die from a heart attack. He actually died from lethal ingestion. So there was something lethal that was put inside of his drink. So I did mention the Bloody Mary a little bit earlier. So whatever it was put inside of his drink. It's something that he could not taste, something that he could not smell. So therefore, he had no idea that he was drinking it. And so when we put everything together, we gotta look at this. Clark was having an affair with his wife. His drink, it was poison. And then when it comes to Clark, well, not really when it comes to Clark, but when it comes to the trike, that recombinant trike, it was at the location where Floyd was found dead. So when you put everything together, Clark is the number one suspect, so they do end up arresting him live on air, which is really embarrassing. Like, I know he's probably like, damn, I wish this happened off air, but it actually happened live on air. After this, Donahue begins questioning Clark. He's like, why did you do it? So Clark is like, well, it all started at a cornhole event. So basically, Floyd had some type of gathering. He invited my family. I ended up meeting his wife, and I became attracted to her instantly. And I did not mention this earlier, but after Floyd realized that he had to leave his phone, he ended up having a flashback, and the flashback involved him and Floyd. So him and Floyd, they were together, they were sitting down, and Floyd was like, hey, do you want to practice your sign language? Clark was like, sure. And so initially when they were doing the sign language, we actually saw captions that explained what the sign language meant, right? But as they were going along, the captions disappeared. But when it comes to Clark, he had this look of surprise on his face, right? And so as we flash forward, we see that when it came to the sign language, Floyd actually told him through sign language that he knows that he's fucking his wife. And so that is actually how the episode ends. So Floyd knew that they were having sex. And so this, of course, adds more to the storyline. And I was like, ooh, this episode was good. I want to thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you could, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. That would be great. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. Take care.